Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Yes! I feel like I've been waiting for this my entire life.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
Jolly good fun. Jolly good.
Locking down the middle of the day.
America's favorite daytime fun show.
Live from the Mercedes-Benz of Baton Rouge studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in. I'm Palmer coming to you from Mercedes-Benz at Baton Rouge studio downtown in the capital city on this Tuesday. Hope your work week's off to a good start. Appreciate you hanging out with us on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge. Normal Tuesday guest will be here just at a little bit different time. Glenn West, we're going to bump him back about 45 minutes. We'll chat with Glenn at 1:15. They're meeting with Jay Johnson and some LSU players here at the box at about 15 minutes. So we'll talk to Glenn about what those guys have to say over at the box before they head to Hoover, Alabama tomorrow. Of course, we'll not play until Friday night, but we'll get Glenn's thoughts on all of that. Sharif Ishak with us in hour number 2 as well. We'll talk some Saints with Sharif. First hour of today's show. Do have some Saints topics that I want to get to. And The Athletic came out with the top 25 college football players of the last 25 years. We're, of course, in 2025. So the best 25 college football players of this century. LSU is represented, but do you feel like properly represented? I guess that'll be the issue that we tackle when we get to that. We'll start today the same way we start every day. That's with our Genesis opening drive.
It's time for Hunt's Opening Drive, presented by Genesis of Baton Rouge.
SEC baseball tournament underway. Missouri season is over, a season I will not soon forget for two reasons. One, they got swept 8 times. The other reason, they swept Texas A&M and probably kept them out of the NCAA tournament. Both of those are remarkable feats that I've never seen anything like, and they're done now. So hope that Missouri gets a nice shower back at the hotel and head on back to Columbia, and that'll be the end of that dreadful 10-week run that the Missouri Tigers went on. Alabama beats them by a score of 4-1. The Tide will move on to play Tennessee tomorrow. Game 2 of the day has already started up in Hoover. It is Kentucky and Oklahoma. Kentucky would probably rather win this game. It'd be a long week if they don't, even though I think they're okay. Oklahoma is probably pretty locked in as a 2 seed, so not a ton to play for the Sooners. We'll be caught up on all of that. But I lead in with that to suggest that LSU's 30-game SEC run has come to an end. And I wrote this LouisianaSports.net, and I really believe this to be the case. I think the 30 games that SEC baseball teams play is the most difficult gauntlet that teams run in collegiate athletics. Like, I can't exactly speak to tennis. I don't know what goes on in equestrian. I'm not completely up on all things softball, but considering what the sport has become, and it's everybody else being a feeder into the SEC, it's made the SEC feel like the big leagues and everybody else feel like the minor leagues. And there will be SEC people that push back, ACC people that push back and say, that's completely disrespectful. Well, I kind of got the proof in the pudding in the postseason. I know North Carolina beat LSU last year. I watched every pitch. But when the teams got to Omaha, the SEC laid them to waste. And when it's time to win championships, the SEC wins it every year. So that's just kind of the deal. And y'all know the local guys that have, let's just use the West. We know that Paul Skeens is from California and came here. We know that Thatcher Hurd and Gage Jump are from California and came here. Anthony Ianson from California came here. Derek Curiel, Daniel Dickinson, Jacob Berry, all from the West Coast, and probably in 1997, maybe even 2007, 2010, a lot of those guys would have played on the West Coast, and they just would have stayed there. But that's not the case. They all come here now. And there have always been Brad Cressys that have come and Aaron Hills that have come. Like, it's not like no one from the West ever flew over to the SEC, but it just happens a lot more now. Fahib Aloy, the SEC Player of the Year at Arkansas, started at Sacramento State. Now he's at Arkansas. 15 years ago, he wouldn't have been in Arkansas. And that's debilitated the West. And it's happened other places as well. Tommy White sets the national freshman home run record at NC State. Boom. Comes to LSU for 2 years. Billy Amick at Clemson. Big-time hitter for them. Goes to Tennessee, wins a national championship. Hurston Waldrop. Remember that name? Like, he's a guy that was at Florida. LSU saw him as a Southern Miss pitcher in the Saturday regional game in Hattiesburg. Was awesome. Became a first-round pick. He went to Florida. That's a guy that would have been at Southern Miss for 3 years in a previous era. But all these great players are coming into the SEC. And so that 30-game run is absolutely brutal for everybody. And nobody got through it without getting punched in the mouth. Texas won the league by 2 games. They went to Fayetteville completely non-competitive for 3 days. Completely non-competitive. Lost a series to Florida. That's a team that at one point was 1-11 in the league. Tennessee lost 6 of 7 series. Arkansas lost 3 series in a row, 4 of 5. LSU went to Auburn, got smoked. Lost 2 other road series. Nobody was immune, but now you're on the other side of it. And I wanted to go back and look statistically at kind of what some of LSU's players did in that 30-game sample size. Because we always look at the batting averages on the big Jumbotron at the box, and we look at the batting averages when they step to the plate on ESPN, and you never really know what a guy does in league play. I'm sure that there aren't a ton of y'all that realize that there were only 2 LSU players that hit 300 in league play in 2023. That offense was incredible. Cruz hit a bajillion. He hit like 420. And Tommy White hit like 370 with like 12 homers. And those 2 guys were legends. But everybody else hit 285, 265. Like it was not a lineup stacked with guys that hit 315 in league play. That's really hard to do. And so I wanted to take just a look at the SEC-only stats and kind of draw some conclusions on some of the guys from LSU. And the first 2 guys I obviously wanted to start with were Cade Anderson and Anthony Ianson. I made the statement yesterday. I wrote the statement around the horn on Sunday at LouisianaSports.net that I thought those 2 guys were as good a 1-2 collectively, not Skeens and Floyd, where Skeens, I'd take him every single time. But collectively 2 guys about on the same level. It feels like about as good as I've ever seen. And the first 2, I'm going to compare them to are the guys last year, because this time last year, right at this point in the calendar last year, you were looking at Gage Jump and Luke Holman and going, LSU's got a chance with those 2. And I feel like, without looking at any statistics, that Anderson and Ianson have been better. But I wanted to look, because the stats will give me a good feel for that, even though I watched it all. Ianson and Anderson have been, I would say, significantly better. In terms of strikeouts in SEC games, Gage Jump 61, Luke Holman 69. So right there in the 60s. Anthony Ianson 86, Cade Anderson 96. Cade Anderson struck out 35 more hitters in SEC play than Gage Jump. So you're talking about a lot more production. You want to go to earned runs? Holman and Jump combined allowed 51 earned runs, and their SEC ERA, the 2 of them combined, 4.24. So 4.25. This year's duo, 43 earned runs in 10 more innings. That means their league ERA was 3.41. That's almost a full run lower, and you're talking about 52 more strikeouts between the 2 of them. So statistically speaking, this is not a very competitive race. Now, Holman and Jump are great, and they were drafted pretty high, and I'd take those guys on just about every LSU team moving forward, just on the roster, not as the ace 1-2, but on the roster. Those guys were really good SEC pitchers, draftable prospects, went deep into games, did a great job. I am not disparaging them at all, and I don't want it to sound like that. Anderson and Ianson right now are the best 1-2 going in college baseball, and that's a very, very comforting thing at this point. Another thing that I looked at for my piece at LouisianaSports.net as far as SEC numbers, transfer triumphs. We know that every single June, Jay Johnson's got to get on the phone, whether he's been eliminated from Chapel Hill or he's in Omaha trying to win a national championship. When it comes to June, you got to be on the phone trying to recruit kids to come play on the next team. Famously talked about recruiting Luke Holman from Omaha. And right now, you understand that one of the first topics of conversation in that discussion is going to be NIL. Like, that's just the nature of the beast. And that'll be something Jay's got to handle with the collective and with his boosters and all that kind of stuff. I can't analyze that. It looks like LSU's pretty competitive. They put together a pretty damn good in a class and transfers every year. So as far as I can analyze, they do pretty well there. But the other piece to it is development and draftability, winning a lot of games. And LSU's doing that. I mean, it's very obvious that Anthony Ianson is a far more draftable prospect today, pitching in the SEC the way that he did, as opposed to just hucking it at UC San Diego. Look at Daniel Dickinson. I asked all January, early February, even into February when he was hitting a ton against the non-conference. I already know he can hit against the non-conference. He did it at Utah Valley for 2 years. What about when the SEC rolls around? Well, Daniel Dickinson answered my question. He hit .314, excellent. He was second on the team in SEC batting average. Hit the ball out of the ballpark 4 times, drove in 14 runs, and was an A-plus second baseman. I think Daniel Dickinson helped himself, and in the process is probably having a lot of fun. How about Chris Stanfield? That's an SEC to SEC transfer. Chris Stanfield led LSU in hitting in SEC play at a .326 batting average. He led LSU in doubles with 14 in league play. Last year at Auburn, in 30 league games, he had 4 doubles. He had 14 this year. So that is part of the sales process. Like, Daniel Dickinson went from playing on Mars to playing on Earth here. Like, Utah Valley to the SEC is 2 different planets, okay? So that's one way that you get a transfer in. But there's also Chris Stanfield was playing for a really good program, a great coach in Butch Thompson. They're going to be a national seed this year. They've been to Omaha recently in the last 4 years. Like, he's a good player, but he came to LSU, and with the coaching he received and with the ability to develop that he got, he's a much, much better player today than he was when he left Auburn. And these are stories, recent stories, relevant stories that Jay Johnson can tell. He can tell them to players that are thinking about transferring in and out of the SEC. He can tell them players that are transferring from Utah Valley or Indiana State or UC San Diego or Air Force. You come here, you will develop. And guys have absolutely done that. So those are 2 stories I wanted to tell. I have some more stats that didn't necessarily have a big story to them, but I found them interesting just poring over the stat sheet this morning. So I'll kind of conclude with some of those. LSU, when they don't make an error this year, is 26-3. What that also says is that the Tigers played 29 error-free games in 55 games. That's obviously more than half of their games LSU didn't make an error. And in college baseball, that doesn't always happen. There are teams that get real shaky defensively. So I feel good about LSU just watching them play defense. I think they play good defense. And I look at the statistics, and it looks like they've obviously done so. When they do make an error, 17-10. So 26-3 when you don't, 17-10 when you do. It's a pretty sizable difference. Stephen Milam made 1 error in 30 SEC games playing shortstop. 1 error in 30 league games. I looked for about 15 minutes and could not find an instance where an LSU shortstop played a cleaner conference slate. Now, that's a Todd Polites question that I'm sure he could dig more deeply into, but I can't proclaim it the fewest amount of errors an LSU shortstops made in 30 SEC games. I don't know that for sure, but I didn't find one. And I didn't go all the way back, but I didn't find one. I had a question about that too. And he's been sensational. And to make 1 error in 30 league games, all the while making some of the really good plays that he made, that's some special stuff from the Tiger shortstop that he should be really, really proud of. I know that Justin LeBron was given the all-defensive team, first team yesterday. He made a play this morning in Hoover that was outrageously good, moving to his right. He's a great defensive player. He probably made more highlight reel plays than Milam. But as far as being steady, which is what you need your college shortstop to be, Stephen Milam was fantastic. Here's one on home runs. And I realize that there is an easy way to kind of read into this because you play some midweek games against bad pitchers and you hit more home runs, and I get that. But still, the point remains, when LSU hit 2 or more home runs this year overall, the Tigers 23-4. 2 or more home runs, 23-4. When they didn't hit a single homer, 9-4. So your winning percentages are way, way different there. You're winning 23 of 27 as opposed to 9 of 13. long ball plays. LSU has a lot of guys that can hit 8 or 9. There's no one outside of Bear Jones that terrifies you with the home run ball. And then one thing that I'll point out, and a lot of this was in the midweek, but it's something to pay attention to, especially next Friday when LSU gets into that 4-seed regional game. LSU's best inning in terms of run differential was the first inning. LSU won the first inning 75-21 this year. And man, does that make your life easier in the regional, in the box, to put another team behind the 8 ball when you get there. That's something that you probably can't coach to, and you do know that your best hitters are going to be coming up in that inning. But that's something I'd really like LSU to capitalize on when the regional comes next week is, hey, you've been great in the first inning all year. Keep that up. So that's just a quick trip around the stat sheet for me here on this Tuesday. If you want to read my piece up at LouisianaSports.net, you can certainly do so for free. It is right there on the front of the page. I'm going to have something a little bit later, either something from Jay Johnson's press conference, which is ongoing now as of 1 minute ago, or I also did a preseason projections column where I made some bold predictions. I don't remember what all of them were, but I'm going to go find it on the website, and I'm going to put a story up about that in the next couple of days, and we'll also talk about that on the radio here. I know there were a couple that went awry, but maybe there's something I got right. We'll just have to go back and look at it. So I wrote that in February, so we'll go check it out later on this week. All right, that's our Genesis opening drive. We'll take a timeout, come back. Trevor Penning, his days in New Orleans numbered. We'll talk about it.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
One Bath and Closets. OneBathAndClosets.com is the website. David Duvall and his team, 30 years redesigning and remodeling bathrooms and closet safety. Big issue in the bathroom when it comes to folks potentially aging, staying home alone. There can be hazardous situations, and you cannot eliminate that risk, but you can mitigate against it. Non-slip floors can be a big thing. You can put guardrails next to slippery areas, showers, toilet areas, bathtubs, walk-in tub, put a bench in the shower. All these things are stuff that David Duvall and his team do all the time, and they are happy to help you with it. So as I say that, if you're thinking to yourself, oh, that may be good for X or Y, reach out, David Duvall, and have the conversation. It doesn't cost you anything to have the consultation. Have that conversation with David. Financing options are available, 0% up to 18 months, and perhaps he can get in there and make that bathroom as safe as it possibly can be. It's One Bath and Closets, OneBathAndClosets.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
All right, chugging along here on a Tuesday. We'll keep you updated from Hoover. Still no score between Kentucky and Oklahoma. 2 more games to go this evening. You can follow along with some scores over at LouisianaSports.net. The only final of the day, Alabama beats Missouri 4-1. They will take on the Tennessee Vols tomorrow in the morning time over in Hoover. Look, I'm not a meteorologist, and I don't think I'm going to completely jinx the entirety of the tournament by speaking here. The weather forecast looks pretty good for Hoover in middle May.
You jinxed it, Hunt.
I don't think so.
You did.
I didn't say it's not going to rain or it's going to be home free. I just said the forecast looks pretty good.
Okay.
And that's really all we can hope for at this point.
It is.
Until they put it in a dome, which I don't know if they're going to do.
It's going to rain. It will rain one day. It does every year. What? I wish there was a way we could go back. We need to go back and do a deep dive in the last 15 years and find out which years it didn't rain one day.
So the last 2 years have been good. Last year, they didn't have any delays. And the year before that, there was one minor deal. Now, that doesn't mean you're not going to get an extra inning game that screws everything up.
Yeah.
And, you know, sometimes the late game goes forever and whatever. But, like, it's always a circus. And I'm confident it'll be a circus again, but I don't think it will be because it rains 3 days in a row and they can't play any baseball. They do have Thursday and Friday baked in where there are only 2 games scheduled on each day. So if you need to beef that up a little bit, they have that leeway. I think between that leeway and the forecast, it should be reasonable to complete things in short order. We'll see. LSU doesn't play till Friday night, so we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. All right, let's talk some Saints. OTA's coming up, rookie camp in the rearview mirror, and there have been some questions about Trevor Penning's future, both in terms of what team he will play for and then what position he will play, and then eventually at what price. The Saints have not picked up his fifth-year option, so he'll play this year out on a string, and then there will be decisions that have to be made. Trevor Penning wasn't terrible at right tackle, but you then have to boil that down and go, well, is not terrible good enough to stick with that? Like, is that the standard we're looking for? You could suggest he was a top 10 run blocking right tackle in the NFL last year, and I don't think you would get a lot of pushback. Like, he's got a lot of highlights where he gets those big mitts on somebody, and he's still big and strong and mean. He can knock somebody down, and that does happen. He also, when he has to put it in reverse, doesn't look awesome a lot. And the misses are bad at times. Now, the misses this past season in 2024 were not nearly as bad as the misses in 2023. There's no question he got a little bit better. The question is, how much better can that progression continue to reach? And then you have to take that into account, whatever your answer is for that, and that's the Saints offensive line coach's problem. Do you decide, okay, we're shoving him over to left guard because we just took Kelvin Banks in the first round and he's going to play right tackle? Or we took Kelvin Banks, who's a career left tackle, and he's going to play left tackle, and then we're going to move Talese Fuanga, a natural right tackle, over to right tackle, and that's how we're going to handle it. There are three different scenarios here. The one I see being the least likely is Trevor Penning playing right tackle. I don't think that's going to happen. Now, an interesting piece that Ross Jackson writes at LouisianaSports.net that I hadn't necessarily considered, but it is straight in line with my thinking about the future of this franchise and how they need to handle the dollars and cents, is if you move Trevor Penning to left guard and you play either Banks at left or Fuaga at left and the other one at right, I don't really care about that point at this point. This is just about Trevor Penning coming off of right tackle to left guard. I think automatically, one, you can evaluate him at left guard and see if that even works. And I'm okay with that this year. Experimentation is fine this year, even if it costs you some games and things look terrible. I don't care. We're trying to find some pieces that fit, that are young and inexpensive. And Trevor Penning is still young, and he's basically inexpensive. He's certainly inexpensive right now, and we'll see what comes after this rookie deal is up. But when you go to the negotiating table with Trevor Penning after this year, and he's got a year at left guard now under his belt, you become a negotiator with a left guard, which is going to command less money than a right tackle, which is going to be on a rookie deal if it's Fuaga or if it's Banks. I've got two tackles on rookie deals. That's as cheap as I can do it. And yeah, Penning was a first-round pick, but paying him at guard may be a different deal. And I have a hard time thinking you're going to be fighting off suitors for Trevor Penning at tackle, where his agent's going to be able to look up and go, well, I got these three teams that want him as a tackle. They're going to pay far more. We're out of here. I don't see that as a realistic scenario. I think the most realistic scenario is you drafted him, you've helped develop him. He will have played 3 positions in 5 years and 4 years, and you may be the only ones really at the table. Now, if he goes out there as a left guard in his first time at that, and you're running the football pretty well, and he looks great doing that, and he's never on an island in pass protection, and all of a sudden he really looks like a pretty good player, well, that's not the biggest problem in the world. If you find that out, pay him a little bit more. He's still young. And then you've solidified your offensive line because you feel great about your tackles. I mean, we'll see what Banks looks like, but he's early first-round pick, and I have no reason to believe he's going to be terrible. You love where you are at center. I think Ruiz is fine over there on the right. Then you've got your offensive line set, and you can start to address other issues. It's kind of like that Dave Ramsey, get out of debt thing, which is kind of what the Saints are in right now. You got to, they're baby steps, and you got to solve one problem and get rid of it, and then go to the next one. Don't try to solve every problem at once. And if you can solve offensive line with Penning playing left guard, okay, well, I don't have to worry about that anymore. I got guys that are on the right side of their prime, some really, really young in their career with 2 tackles. And now I can start worrying about wide receiver where I got nothing, running back where I'm aging, what the heck's going on at quarterback, we'll see. And then some of the defensive guys as they begin to roll off. But I think that the days of Trevor Penning playing tackle for the Saints should be over. The upside on him moving down to guard and then putting a younger player at tackle feels like almost too easy at this point. So we'll see. We may not get our answer until the middle of August. We may get it in OTAs. You never know. We don't have a Kellen Moore OTAs in our rear view to go back on. He'll be running the show for the first time. So we'll take a look. We'll talk Sharif about it, but this seems easy to me. I gave you those three options at the front. Let's boil it down to the very, very core. Banks is on one tackle. Fuaga's on another tackle. Penning's at left guard. If it works, awesome. Try to re-sign him. He's your left guard. If he can't do it, see ya. That's not going to hurt you too bad. I think that's the best way to go about it. And hopefully, that's what we find out this coming fall. If you're looking for Saints content, you can find it on YouTube. Hunt on Saints. Subscribe to the channel. We certainly do appreciate it. Wherever you find your podcast, you can also search Hunt on Saints. All Saints football, 365 days a year. We'll talk about it with Sharif coming up in hour number 2 as well. So when we come back, The Athletic's got a really cool piece up on the top 25 college football players of this century. And LSU, as you would imagine, is well represented. But what about the numbers? What do you think? Where's Burrow? Anybody else up in the top 10? We'll see. That's next.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge. GenesisofBatonRouge.com is that website. Every car that's on the lot is online at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. Stop by the store, Airline at PQ. If you're in the market for a new vehicle, you're probably on Airline. A lot of showrooms. Just make that one more stop. Because the odds are you have never gotten behind the wheel of a Genesis. The odds are you've never sat in a Genesis. You may not know much about Genesis. It's fairly new to the game. But it's a luxury brand of vehicles at a reasonable price. When I say luxury brand of vehicles, there may be some of you go, well, I can't afford that. Well, just give it a look. Go chat with one of their brand ambassadors. That's free, and I know you can afford it. Get behind the wheel for that test drive. They can come to you for a test drive if you can't leave the office or you'd like to stay at home. And just see the difference. I talk to you about the safety, the style, the comfort, and the great staff there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. They'll be with you every step of the way. Start that buying process at GenesisofBatonRouge.com. See something you like, reach out. Get behind the wheel for a test drive. It's Genesis of Baton Rouge, GenesisofBatonRouge.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
Glenn West will be with us coming up in about 45 minutes. Sharif Ishak, bottom of hour number 2. So still some LSU and Saints to get to over the course of the next 90 minutes or so. We'll certainly keep you up to date with all things that are going on in Hoover at the moment. Alabama's third baseman just let a ball go right between the wickets. So Kentucky will take a 1-0 lead on the Oklahoma. That's not Alabama. Alabama played this morning. But Oklahoma and Alabama kind of look the same on a baseball field, and both had on pinstripes today. So Kentucky takes a 1-0 lead on Oklahoma. Kentucky may have something to play for here. They're on the bubble, got swept this past weekend against Vanderbilt. I think their metrics are good enough to get in, but a win today would probably make them feel a little bit better. We'll keep you posted as the day goes on. All right, Beck, let's have some fun with this. I'm doubting you've seen the Athletics list of the top 25 players, so that's why this part is fun. I have. Let's just see, and you can just name them individually, how many LSU players you think made this list. It's the last 25 years, so starting with the 2000 season. We've played 25 of them. So who do you feel good about being on the list?
Burrow and Daniels.
Burrow and Daniels are both on the list. You want to throw a guess as to the range where they might fall?
I would say Burrow is probably in the top 5.
He is. He's number 4.
And Daniels probably in the top 10?
No.
Maybe 15, top 15?
Nope.
Wow, okay. So he's like in the 20s?
He's 21.
Okay.
And if you look at this list, you think about the year we watched Jaden play, and it was amazing. This list is full of dudes. Like, there's some really good players. I read you Terrell Suggs' stats just a second ago, and that's not someone that would immediately pop to my name.
No.
In one season, He had 31 tackles for loss and 24 sacks. Not a career.
Yeah, and
in a season.
And they only played less games than they do now.
So like it's he was pretty good. So it's guys like that maybe you wouldn't quite recall. I mean, we all know how good Larry Fitzgerald was, and he's on this list, and Ndamukong Suh. So like there's just Jaden had a great year, and it was awesome, but it's tough to make the list. So those two, do you feel like there's another?
Maybe Glenn Dorsey.
Very good guess. I think worthy, not on the list.
Yeah.
Glenn won every award you can win for a national championship team.
It's crazy to think that I don't expect to see Jamar Chase or Justin Jefferson on the list because Joe Burrow takes that year.
Yeah, Devontae Smith made the list round 10 somewhere, and then Larry Fitzgerald made the list, and I don't remember another wide receiver on the list. I think those are the only three. Larry Fitzgerald's 11, Devontae Smith is 13, and I don't remember another wide receiver. I'll keep scrolling, but do you think there's another one?
I would guess no.
There is one more.
Okay.
So now you have the opportunity to guess.
Patrick Peterson.
Patrick Peterson is not on the list. Very, very good player. And I would suggest this will get pushed back. I would suggest that Glenn Dorsey and Patrick Peterson were quote unquote better players, down in and down out, than this guy.
Okay.
But he made the list.
And I
think that
Tyrann Mathieu?
That's it.
Yeah.
Tyrann is number 24 on this list.
Okay.
Now, I want to be very clear. I am not in any way disparaging Tyrann Mathieu when I say that.
And I was thinking, whenever I was thinking, I'm like, okay, it's going to be Burrow and Daniels for sure. And then I was like, okay, then you got to go back to that around that era is Patrick Peterson, maybe Tyrann Mathieu, maybe Glenn Dorsey. I was not thinking it would be Tyrann Mathieu for the reason you said, as terms of like.
I mean, if I'm going to put somebody on Julio Jones, I'm going to put somebody on Amari Cooper. I want Patrick Peterson covering those dudes.
Yes.
I'd rather Derek Stingley or Morris Claiborne covering those dudes. But, and I say this as a words nerd. Unique gets thrown out just all over the place all the time, and it's improperly used. He's the most unique. He's very unique. He's kind of unique. Like, it's either unique, it's one, or it's not. That's the only way unique works.
Or you say like once in a generation or something like that.
Yeah, the generational player kind of irritates me too, because that whatever. But Tyrann Mathieu, as a college football player, to me, unique. I've never in my life seen anybody play college football like that. He simply would take the ball away from the other team. Not like it happened one time, like all the time. Took the ball away from the guy in the Arkansas game, took the ball away from the guy in the Georgia game. Kentucky game, he comes ripping off the edge and swipes the ball away from the quarterback and goes and scores a touchdown. West Virginia game, he gets back there, bats it away. Then you factor in the kick returning aspects of it, where he returned the punts against Arkansas and Georgia that completely flipped those games. Like, I'm not arguing that Tyrann Mathieu shouldn't be on this list. I'm perfectly accepting of him being on this list. I think he made the list more because we've never seen anything like that before.
I would agree.
And that's really, really amazing stuff. And that first year when he did all that in 2011 was my first year on the beat. So it was literally my full-time job to cover that team. It was the first team I ever covered. And so I remember that season vividly well. I was at every game. I was on the sidelines for all the fourth quarters. I was doing interviews after the game with all the players and Les, and it was my first time. So that kind of leaves an impression. You do this for 35 years, like a lot of folks in Baton Rouge have done it. Like, some stuff may, blend together. That was like right out of the chute for me. So for him, that's incredible. How do you feel back about Joe Burrow being number 4? And do you want to give a guess as to who's in front of him on this list? Because I think there are a lot of people in Baton Rouge say, best quarterback in the history of college football. But
I don't feel like 4 is a bad spot. I think that's fair. I think that's perfectly fair because if we're talking about the last 25 years, I think 4 is fair.
Do you have a guess as to someone in front of him?
Maybe Ndamukong Suh.
Ndamukong Suh is number 3 on this list. Let's see his best season as a defensive tackle. 85 tackles, 21 TFLs, 12 sacks, and in the blurb they wrote about him, they played a Texas team that was averaging 43 points per game in the Big 12 championship game. And in that game, he had, in one game, 12 tackles, 7 TFLs, and 4.5 sacks. That is unbelievable.
Yeah, it's just
unbelievable.
Yeah,
from the defense. Like, it'd be one thing if he was on the edge and like he could, but he's like right in the middle of the line of scrimmage, and there's a million linemen in there, and they couldn't do it. And they were a high flying offense, and he just blew the whole thing up. So yeah, and Ndamukong Suh is in front of him.
Let's see. Last 25 years, maybe Vince Young.
Vince Young is not.
No. Okay.
2 from pretty close to that era.
Yeah. I'm guessing. I wonder. I'm guessing they'll be maybe Heisman winners. But the thing is,
they both won the Heisman.
Okay. Yeah. So
one didn't get to keep it very long.
Oh, Reggie Bush.
Reggie Bush is number 2, and then the number 1, and I have a hard time arguing, is Cam Newton.
Yeah.
I was in Auburn in 2010 when Cam Newton did all that, and it was something to watch in person. And the biggest feather in Cam's cap in this blurb, and really when you talk about him, is that Auburn team that went undefeated and won the national championship wasn't really that good.
Yes.
And he was so good that it didn't matter. He threw for 30 touchdowns. He ran for 20 touchdowns. He ran for 1,473 yards and threw for a tick under 3,000. He was 6'5", 250. They played some close games. Like, Burrow never really played close games. They just beat the crap out of everybody. But Cam dragged a ragtag Gene Chizik team that went 8-4 the year before him and 8-4 the year after him and completely fell off the face of the earth the next year. And Cam dragged that program, which was clearly not in very good shape, and won the national championship with him because he was that good. So I don't have a huge issue with that. I'll take Burrow every single day of the week, and I'm sure Cam Newton would have been awesome on that Joe Burrow team. But I think the way that the Burrow team was constructed, he was the perfect fit because he was the ultimate chess master and he had all the best pieces. Like, so to have Chase and Jefferson and Marshall and Clyde, and then the offensive line that ended up having all 5 guys played in the NFL, and then to put the best game management quarterback that made tons of plays, but like, let's be honest, the best thing about Joe that year was he got the ball and immediately took one step and flipped it to somebody that was open for 12 yards. Like, and they did it constantly. And sometimes it was 12 yards and he got tackled, and sometimes he hit Chase on the slant and then nobody got him and he ran for 50. And when they needed to, they could hit the deep ball on command. But like, it was the fact that Joe knew what the defense was doing. The defense wasn't good enough to stick with the guys he had, and he was never going to miss. So it was just a perfect blend and a combination. Jaden had a great group as well. That offensive line had 4 guys drafted. He had 2 first-round wide receivers who have been stars in the NFL, and he added the dimension of, okay, maybe you cover Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors one time. You might cover them. I'll just run for 20. So that was really good too. I don't have any problem with Jaden going back there at 21. You start to look at some of the names on this list, and I'm not going to balk at Jaden Daniels being listed behind Ed Reed, being listed behind Vince Young. Tim Tebow's 8th on this list. Like, Tim Tebow is the most decorated college football player of all time. He's 8th on this list. Like, Travis Hunter at 9. That's more of a Tyron type deal where you're doing more than everybody else is doing. I mentioned Terrell Suggs earlier. Larry Fitzgerald caught a touchdown in 437 straight games at Pittsburgh, so I'm not going to complain about that. Andrew Luck at 12, Devontae Smith at 13. Here's a question. I don't even have a great answer for it. This year, I'm going to give you who's got an average roster. I'm going to give you the roster of the
South Carolina's got a pretty good roster.
No, that's an average roster.
Yeah.
That's great. They're not in Georgia's or Texas's category. They're not atrocious. You got South Carolina's roster. There's probably a couple second-round picks on that roster, whatever.
Yeah. Lawrence Sellers could be a
and I'm taking Sellers off.
Yeah. Okay.
You get Andrew Luck or Jaden Daniels to go run that team. Who would you take?
I would say Jaden Daniels.
So would I.
Yeah, because it's you need.
I don't know how you stop Jaden Daniels with college kids.
Right. And especially with South Carolina's roster, they're not going to be set up for the style of offense that Andrew Luck would really what he played well in at Stanford and then the NFL were pro style offenses and required good offensive line play.
Yeah, I think
and
Luck
everything.
needed if he had the supporting cast, he could direct the symphony.
Right.
But Jaden could just kind of do whatever he wants.
Yes.
Like that Florida game, Andrew Luck doesn't have that game.
Yeah.
So great pro prospect, great quarterback. I think I would probably take Jaden. So I think it's an interesting list this time of year to get into that. And the LSU guys, I don't think were massively disrespected. I wouldn't have been stunned if Patrick Peterson or Glenn Dorsey showed up on that list. And I'm not sure that I think that the three wide receivers we listed are significantly better than Jamar Chase.
Who's like the bottom? So Jay Nail's 21.
I don't think Johnny Manziel made the list.
Well, that's interesting.
Which is interesting. But, I mean, they lost a lot of games.
Yeah.
The bottom of the list is Quentin Nelson, offensive lineman from Notre Dame, who was great. Tyron at 24. Brock Bowers at 23, Sean Taylor at 22, speaking of dudes, and then you got Jaden and Aaron Donald
Brock
at 20.
Bowers is interesting. I mean, he definitely is one of the better tight ends we've seen in college football. So I do kind of wonder, too, when they make these lists of, like, are they going to make sure that they include a bunch of different positions, just to make sure that they're covering all the positions?
Possibly.
I don't know, but
I think towards the end of that list with Bowers and Tyron right there towards the end, you're just looking at, well, who else? Who do we even compare them to?
Yeah,
I don't know. So that means they're pretty special. But I did not take offense to the list.
Yeah.
It's cool for me kind of because if you go back like the All-Century team or something, you start rattling off the Bo Jacksons and Herschel Walkers. I can watch YouTube clips, but I saw a lot of these guys play with my own two eyes, being in the SEC and going to national championship games and whatnot. So it's cool because like when in 2000 I was 12, like very much able to lock in and see what I was looking at. So I don't have too big a problem with the list. That's at The Athletic if you want to go check it out. Step away, come back and close out the hour next.
The Hunt Palmer Show. You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show on 104.5 ESPN, Baton Rouge.
I forgot to mention this when we were talking about Missouri and Alabama playing this morning because I didn't know about it until yesterday after I got off the air. Missouri in the series against Mississippi State didn't throw any of their weekend starters in preparation for the SEC tournament. So the thought was, well, beating Mississippi State doesn't help us.
No.
We have to win the SEC tournament, so we're just going to not pitch any of our pitchers, which is fine like on its face if you're Missouri and you think, well, we got to go win 5 games in 6 days. Let's go. But the other piece of it is there's probably like 10 bubble teams that are looking at Mississippi State, who was 12-15 entering that weekend, that were like, I mean, if Missouri just beats them once, then, like they might be in a little bit of trouble, and they just didn't even try to win.
Well, Missouri doesn't care about those teams.
No, they don't. And Missouri came to the SEC tournament, and they scored one
lost.
run. So who cares who you pitched? But
it didn't matter.
A preposterous job by the Missouri coaching staff of holding their entire starting rotation
I think it's great
to get ready for Hoover, and now those guys just didn't get to pitch. Senior day in Columbia, we're sending out we're gonna hold everybody. Just go out there in the bullpen. And they gave up 1 million runs. It didn't quite work out. The rest of the schedule in Hoover right now, Kentucky and Oklahoma are playing right now. Oklahoma has taken the lead. They had a 2-run homer in the 3rd inning and have added another run, so it's 3-1 Oklahoma in that one. A bigger game for Kentucky in that game right now. The 4:30 game, our time here Central, will be Pulmonary South Carolina Gamecocks and the Florida Gators. Florida, if they win this thing, I think is a host. I don't think they're a host today. So the more they win, the better. And I can certainly tell you if they lose to South Carolina and take that RPI hit, they will not be a host. So big game for Florida. South Carolina's got to win the whole thing, obviously. They don't have Ethan Petrie. He will not be available this week. So probably a game that you would significantly favor the Florida Gators in. And then the nightcap tonight is LSU's pod. The winner of this game will play Auburn, and the winner of that game plays LSU. Texas A&M and Mississippi State. A&M, I think, has to win the whole tournament to get in there 11-19. I understand they have some really good series wins. I understand that they've got a lot of talent, but I think got to win the whole thing, and they're probably going to have to do it without Caden Sorrell, who has got a pretty significant injury. So Mississippi State is 15-15. They're in. They can't host. They're probably a 3 seed. So I think certainly a lot more on the line for the Aggies tonight. That thing will get underway at 8:00. So look, one of my favorite weeks of the year. The reason for that is because it's a lot of baseball. It starts in the morning, and most of it doesn't matter that much. So it's not high stress. It's just enjoyable. You see a lot of really good players. You'll start to see a lot of really good pitchers starting tomorrow. So I'll keep you posted on Kentucky and Oklahoma as we move forward. We're going to pause for SportsCenter, get you caught up on national headlines. We'll come back. We got a lot to do. Glenn West and Sharif Ishak will jump aboard. I'll talk some LSU baseball as well. Hope your Tuesday is going well. We'll see you on the other side of SportsCenter.
The Hunt Palmer Show.